Today's episode of Horror Movie Talk brought to you by KetoCraze.com. Ever wanted to eat your weight in bacon every single day? Tired of taking boring old regular shits? KetoCraze.com can get you on your way to a fitter life while providing you the sense of out-of-control madness that you so deeply crave. Visit KetoCraze.com to see just how far you can push your body in the name of health today. Hello and welcome to Horror Movie Talk, an opinionated and accidentally funny horror movie review show. Your schlubby hosts each week are Bryce Hanson, the cool collected nihilist, and David Day, a cool guy who is always worried. New theatrical releases always get priority, but we also review older horror movies, both good and horrible. I'm David Day.
I'm Bryce Hanson.
That's Bryce Hanson over there, and boy, do we got a good show for you guys today. I'm pretty amped about it because we went and saw an early screening of the new Pet Sematary remake, and I was pleasantly surprised. How about you?
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I was a lot better than I expected. So we got a great show surrounding the Pet Sematary remake for you today. And we'll be starting out the way we start out every show by giving a brief review and score for the movie. We score on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being bad, 10 being fabulous, and 5 being just kind of average, just kind of meh. It kind of hits all the things you expect it to, and it's nothing amazing. After that, we'll give our score and get into spoilers and take a deeper dive into what we liked and hated about the film. And after that, we will be doing the Rotten Tomatoes game, which is a staple on this show. At this point, it's a game where I pit two movies against each other for Bryce, and he has to guess which one has the higher Rotten Tomatoes Tatometer score. And today's theme for that is going to be originals versus remakes. So we're going to take a look at movies that have been remade and pit them against their originals.
Exciting.
But first, we're going to plug our website, horrormovietalk.com. You can check us out on there. We got new posts that go up every single week, as well as blogs and videos and all kinds of fun content for you to check out.
And since we're talking about Pet Sematary today, we should probably mention our breakaway hit in the blog post category.
Yeah, Keith's blog that compares his impressions of Pet Sematary, the remake, based on the trailer to the original, really has been doing quite well for us.
Yeah. Up until yesterday, we were ranked number 1 on Google for Pet Sematary original versus remake, and we got knocked off the top spot by Uproxx. Those bastards. Bunch of clickbaity. So,
our clickbait.
If you want to read the blog, don't go directly to the website. Search Pet Sematary original versus remake, and then click on our listing.
Right.
Kick off Uproxx from that top spot. Those clickbaity bastards.
Yeah, their clickbait beat our clickbait. We post new episodes every Wednesday, so make sure to subscribe and leave a review of the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen. You can also support the podcast by buying, renting, or buying, just buying anything on Amazon. If you go to our site, horrormovietalk.com first, and then click through our link at the top of the banner. It says, buy stuff on Amazon. It's green.
Yep.
You can bookmark that, and then every time you go to Amazon, you can just, help us out. And it doesn't add any extra cost to your purchase. It just lets us have a little piece of it. A piece that Amazon doesn't need because they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation and we're starving artists.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Jeff Bezos might need the money. He just lost half of his fortune to his wife, probably.
Oh, half of billions and billions of dollars is still billions and billions of dollars.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, fuck them.
Yeah. Also, if you would like to support the podcast and get access to great horror stuff, streaming horror stuff, go to Shudder.com, sign up for a free month trial, and enter HMT at checkout. And like I said, you get 30 days free instead of the normal 7 days free. Newly added on Shudder just recently, pretty notable titles, stuff that I'm planning on checking out. You got Halloween 2 and 3. Halloween 3 is Season of the Witch, which we also have a great blog for, discussing about how it kind of got waylaid by critics and stuff when it really was a worthwhile entry to the series. Also on Shudder, we got Critters, a new binge, which is a Shudder exclusive series. This is a show about critters. It's like 10 episodes long. It looks insane. I got to start it.
Yeah, we got to watch it. I had a coworker send me a clip from it where it's just like one of the critters gets kicked or something. And he's like, ah, fuck.
You also got other new stuff on Shudder right now is The Fly from 1986. Great movie. Lots of body horror there. You got Cloverfield, which is a kickoff to one of my favorite series. Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich, Army of Darkness, Jacob's Ladder, The Burbs. You can't pass up The Burbs. Come on, people.
Would that be the only Tom Hanks film that could be classified as a horror movie?
I mean, there's a lot of borderline horror in a lot of the stuff he does. Being stuck on an island for many years is pretty upsetting.
No.
I'm the Captain Now. That's also pretty upsetting.
Yeah.
It's not horror. It's kind of thriller.
Thriller.
Yeah.
Burbs is probably thriller-ish too.
Yeah, I mean, Burbs is as close as you can get, really, I think, when you're talking Tom Hanks. I would also like to throw out a challenge to our audience right now. If you can come up with a new game for us to play at the end of the show, like the Rotten Tomatoes game, like Taglines, like, what are some of the other ones? There's
horror movie or Lifetime movie.
Horror. Yeah, if you guys can come up with a new original game that we end up using on the show, I personally will send you a $10 Amazon gift card that you can use to support the show. So you'll use that and click through our link, and then everybody will be... You can do whatever you want with it. So do that thing, and then I'll do that thing, and then we'll do that thing. Thanks again for listening, and let's get into the show. We went and saw an early screening of Pet Sematary 2019, and I was bracing for a very bad movie. Even though I was guarded, Pet Sematary proved itself to be a stellar remake that I would venture to say was a little bit better than the original. This remake used the first movie as a foundation to build a familiar but different enough movie that had lots of callbacks and was, in many ways, a response to the original. So with that, let's play that trailer.
In the woods today, LA discovered a charming little landmark. The Pet Sematary.
Place to bury our pets and remember them. Might seem scary, but it's not. Perfectly natural. Just like dying is natural.
Whole town's been using this place for generations. Folks make a kind of ritual out of it. It's not some campfire story.
Saw these on the trees up there.
They're warnings. The local tribes carved them before they fled. They feared that place. There's something up there. Something that dates way back. Those woods belong to something else. Something
That cat was dead.
that brings things back.
Church?
I know what you're thinking of doing. But they don't come back the same.
Daddy.
What's going on?
Hug your daughter. I should never have shown you that place. Your child is not the only thing that will come back.
The barrier is broken. We have a second chance.
Sometimes dead is better.
So it's interesting. Like I was saying, Keith should update the blog once he sees the movie since it was based on the trailer, but I don't think there's a lot in the movie that's not in the trailer. I mean, especially if you've seen the original, like you can fill in
It's mostly
pretty
about
much everything.
Yeah, it's mostly about your response, like your impression of how it hit you. And in that regard, this is a fresh take on the old classic. This really is. This isn't just the movie remade.
Yeah, it's a much different tone than the first one.
It's a different tone. It's a response to the first. So, in my opinion, if you're going to watch this movie, it's going to be made much, much better if you first go through and watch the original. That is almost required homework to make the remake much more enjoyable. Because there's so much stuff that is set up in the first that makes you anticipate certain things happening, and they either play out differently or they twist it a little bit. So you know, the same thing happens but not at the appropriate time, and so it kind of surprises you.
It kind of subverts your expectations.
Yes.
Several times, especially if you've seen the original.
Yeah.
Or even if you've read the book. It changes some of the story elements a little bit for, you know, different reasons.
Yeah.
But in the end, the things that they changed weren't so annoying or problematic that it was distracting or made me mad.
No, and in fact, in a lot of cases, it gave a better motive to the character, right? So, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But, boy, man, think about how many times John Lithgow how many takes they did of sometimes dead is better.
Yeah.
Like, they probably just sat there and he just, sometimes that is better. That is better. That is better. So, if you listened to our last podcast episode, which was a review of the original Pet Sematary, then you can skip this little setup section because it's basically, I mean, it is at its base, it is the same movie because it's Pet Sematary. So Pet Sematary tells the story of the young Creed family. Lewis Creed is a doctor moving to a small town of Ludlow, Maine, with his wife, Rachel, and his two children, Is it L or Ellie?
Ellie. But he calls her L, too.
Okay. With his two children, Elle and Gage. Immediately, they meet the kindly old man, Judd Crandall.
Well, this one's different because they don't immediately meet Judd.
Right. They don't immediately meet Judd. Well, they do immediately meet him, but not as immediately.
I see you copied and pasted my synopsis.
Absolutely, I did. It's at its core, it is the same movie,
right?
And I'll get into the differences on the spoilers, but because the differences.
You actually did just copy and paste mine. That's funny.
Yeah, but the differences are spoilers in this. If you step back and look at this, all the differences in this movie are actual spoilers to this movie.
Okay.
So
proceed.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it.
So Judd introduces the family to the features of the property, but he doesn't actually introduce them to the Pet Sematary. That is a spoiler. Mainly, he shows them the busy road filled with exclusively with speeding 18-wheelers and other stuff about their property. He doesn't. Anyway,
I should have read this before.
The crux
started reading.
The crux of the
Okay, proceed.
So the crux of the plot lies entirely on what lies beyond the Pet Sematary, a Micmac Indian burial ground that holds the secret to resurrection. After the loss of a family cat, church, Judd takes Lewis to the Indian burial ground, which has the unique feature where whatever is buried there will come back to life. While the feline resurrection saves Elle, the grieving of the grieving of losing her favorite cat, the knowledge of the power to restore life is a Pandora's box that only results in misery for the Creed family.
See, I ruined it. You should have just I should have just let you read it verbatim and then have it actually be exactly like without calling attention to it.
Yeah.
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 I mean, so here's the differences. These aren't spoilers, but the difference in the movie in this one is that Judd doesn't immediately come over. The Creed family, and I think it's specifically Ellie, watches that procession of kids in masks with their dead pet go bury it in the pet cemetery, and then they go back and they're like, well, that was weird. I think there's like one truck that passes, but it made a way bigger deal in the original about just a bunch of semi-trucks passing their house all the time, and it was a little more subtle in this one, and Judd didn't point out the connection between the pet cemetery and the road specifically.
Right.
So, yeah, Judd was more of like a kindly man that ran into Ellie as she was investigating the pet cemetery and then gets introduced that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's accurate. So this movie surprised me in a lot of welcome ways. It was similar enough to the original that it felt like you knew what was coming, which would be boring. If you knew what was coming every step of the way, that would make this a bad remake. The great part of this remake is it twisted and moved around your expectations to surprise and titillate. There were moments where you were sure you knew what was going to happen because of the original movie. The setup was there, and then nothing. Just a kind of a moment to breathe. Other places where you expect A and got Q, and who the hell expects Q? No one. So overall, my impression of this movie was pretty darn positive. That being said, it wasn't the best horror movie, and it wasn't, the best movie, but it was a great remake. And for that, I give it an 8 out of 10, which is 1 point higher than the original that we both gave the original. We both gave the original a 7.
Yeah. I'm going to keep mine at 7. I give it the same score as I gave the original. It was as good for different reasons. It did some things better, and the original did some things better. And there were some choices that they made that were like, it's a pretty easy, the easy way, especially in terms of production design and some of the direction. It was overall, it was a slicker movie, and it was a lot more cohesive than the original. And yeah, the acting was definitely better.
Way better.
In this one. And the characters were better. But some of the scares, and like I don't think I was as impressed with the fake outs. It was like, it was good, and they're pulled off well, but a lot of that's like it's also kind of a trope in horror movies, especially with like jump scare stuff, to be like, oh, listen to the music, that means something's gonna happen, and then nothing happens, and then something happens.
Yeah,
like that happened several times in this movie, and I can't blame them. It's super effective.
Yeah,
like, people love it.
Yeah, I mean, they use it because it works.
The Conjuring universe is
entirely built on that premise.
One of the most successful franchises right now because of that trope. So
yeah,
I can't blame them, but I've seen it before. It's not super impressive to me.
Yeah, and if you look at movies that like Terrified, Tarados. If you take a look at that movie, in a lot of ways, it's just a rehashing of things that work.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the thing about the horror genre is there's only so many ways you can slice it. Like no pun intended. Like there are some tricks that work, and they will continue to work because it's hard coded into our brain.
Yeah, and the movie production team's job is to come up with new and interesting ways to make those same things work over and over again.
Yeah, but also when they don't use them, it's it's sometimes more disturbing.
Yes,
because if you look at a movie like
Hereditary,
or the house that Jack built, like the difference between what some of the scenes with the house that Jack built is that there is no setup. It's just flat. You're just like, this horrible thing happened all of a sudden, and it just feels very based in reality.
Yeah, it feels like
way more disturbing.
This
than
is
if it's...
this is how things happen.
Yeah.
It's quiet and everything's calm, and then somebody snaps, and they murder someone, and then
even I'm thinking like sound effects. I'm trying to think of a good example. Like if you clunk someone over the head, if someone is attacking someone by bludgeoning them in the head, a very movie thing to do would be just have a huge sound effect of like a, know, mm-hmm. And that's effective.
That's
because
the
you're
exclamation
like,
mark.
Yeah, because you're like, ooh, that sounds bad. But if you have a movie that just uses the sound of someone getting hit in the head,
yeah,
or if you like just see a YouTube video, it just sounds like,
yeah,
that's it. And that's like, can be more disturbing when you realize like, oh, that feels like that really happened, and that's not something I'm ever supposed to see in my life.
Right. Unless
someone literally get murdered by being clunked over the head.
Unless you use an aluminum baseball bat, where you get those nice dingers. So there it is. I give it 8 out of 10. Bryce gives it 7 out of 10. But because I'm writing the review, it's a 8 out of 10 for Horror Movie Talk. So you're wrong. So with that, let's get into the spoilers. Spoilers. If you want the bare bones of how Pet Sematary spoilers plays out, I would suggest listening to our previous episode, the one that aired right before this one, last week's episode, about the original Pet Sematary from 1989, because that's going to set you up really well for how the spoilers in this one differ. Pet Sematary begins with Ellie finding the pet cemetery because she saw a procession of children walking on her property down the path, as Bryce explained earlier. In the original movie, Judd brings the family to the cemetery, which kicks off the whole downward spiral of, the arc of the movie.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, I felt the original did really well, is setting up the dread of, look, here's a road that's exclusively filled with semi-trucks that kill animals all the time, so much that we have a pet cemetery right here.
Right.
And so you're like, hey, wait a minute. They have an animal.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let that animal...
They wouldn't kill a kitty,
not in a movie.
A little kitty.
Yeah.
Yes, but it does. But I appreciate this setup for a different reason, which is this difference, while small, is relevant because it shifts a bit of the blame from kind old Judd to basically no one in particular. They would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those kids wearing the spooky dog and cat masks. This is kind of like Han shot first in Star Wars, right? In the original cut of Star Wars, Han shoots Greedo and Mos Eisley, implying that he is a bad man or a murderer. And in the late 90s re-release, they changed it so that Greedo shot and missed Han, implying that Han was a good guy all along. He shot in self-defense. And that fundamentally changed the character of Han. And while it's not as weighty in the Pet Sematary remake, I think it's at least relevant to bring up that Judd is not responsible for introducing this family to basically potential evil. Judd takes to Ellie and begins to form a relationship with her. The kind old man has a soft heart for the little girl who just moved in next door, and it's sweet. It's a nice feeling. There's nothing sinister or weird about it. It's just kind of a good feeling. And John Lithgow actually does the role of Judd really well, I think.
Yeah. I think people have been complaining that there was no attempt at the main accent, but it's like,
yeah,
whatever. It was a feature of the original. There was a couple like really maney accents, especially with Judd.
Yeah,
but it doesn't matter.
I mean, I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, I mean, how much does the main accent add to the movie? If anything, it creates a little bit of a circus, you know. It's like a side attraction that doesn't really lead anywhere.
Well, it just makes Stephen King feel better.
Right, exactly. This is just kind of a masturbatory thing for Stephen King. It's like, it's in Maine. Hey, check it out. Maine, though. Maine, right? Yeah, so because I kind of I actually really liked John Lithgow's performance in this, I have to eat my words from last episode where I was like, no one can touch the character of Judd. This is a sacrilege. Yeah. I think he did a fine job of it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that this film does a lot better than the original is the acting and the writing for each of the characters is a lot better.
Yeah.
The first one was a lot more Lewis focused, like heavily around Lewis, so much so that like they seclude Lewis from everyone else for like over half of the movie.
Yeah.
Like there's several times in the original where the Creed family like goes somewhere and leaves Lewis alone, and he's like facing all these things and discovering all these things on his own.
Yeah.
This one, there is a time that they leave him, but it's just at the most important moment, and it's not like while he's finding out all this stuff. But anyways, that's a sidetrack. But what I was going to say is the most noticeable increase in quality in the acting and the character development is with Rachel.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Rachel was actually interesting, and the acting was great.
Felt like a real person and not a one-sided bitch.
Oh, damn. I should have had shilly-shally up.
Don't shilly-shally, Lewis.
Don't shilly-shally, Lewis. Give the little girl a promise.
Yeah, her and just the interactions between everyone felt more real, and that there was other stuff going on before and after.
I think that alone is enough to bring it up a point. The fact that all the characters were well acted, like the guy who played Lewis in the first one, boo. Like you said, he was half the movie at least, and he was just a bad actor.
Yeah. That does bring it up a lot.
It does. The acting in this was, I mean, it's not like the acting in this was spectacular. John Lithgow did a really good job. Everyone else did a pretty good job. Like, I believed all of them. The difference is the first one was very bad. Like, the acting was bar none bad. And yet it still pulled out a 7. Probably based on the story. But
right.
This Rachel character brings us to my next point, which is the Zelda subplot in this is way better in every way. Zelda is if you're not familiar with Pet Sematary, Rachel is the wife of Lewis. This the family that we're focusing on. And her older sister, was Zelda. And Rachel has a lot of flashbacks regarding her now deceased older sister, Zelda. Zelda had some kind of horrible degenerative disease, and Rachel has lots of flashbacks to being a little kid who has to take care of her terrifying older sister, who also hates her. To make matters worse, in this movie, like I said, Zelda actually resents Rachel for not having a degenerative disease and seems to wish her some sort of harm.
Yeah, in this movie, I don't think they call out specifically that it was spina bifida.
Yeah, it's some sort of disease.
Yeah, they just said that your spine will be
all twisted up.
Twisted up, just like mine.
Yeah.
I actually don't know anything about spina bifida, but maybe it's to you know,
Looks like a heck of a ride.
you don't want to piss off the spina bifida lobby.
Ooh,
you know,
yeah. Forget about it. They got money for days. Zelda, and they are litigious. The scares surrounding Zelda in this movie are probably the most intense scares, and while many of them are jump scare oriented, the tension is built quite well, and I liked it. You know, I was like, "Woo, that's spooky."
yeah.
Oh, ooh, what a spoopy thing.
Yeah, the other thing about the Zelda storyline is it's much more closely integrated into the plot.
Yeah.
That it feels more part of it than a complete aside
Yes.
in the original. The original, it feels like Stephen King writing a short story within a novel.
Right.
And then just kind of tacking it on.
It feels like the Gremlins dad in the chimney subplot,
Right.
which is just tacked on and weird.
Right. I mean, there's other callbacks in the original at the end, but it's not. It's more of like, you know, when you're in the Conjuring or something, they're going through their Hall of Horrors, and they're like, oh yeah, and this one, this is a doll, Annabelle, blah 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 blah, and this is like a haunted thimble that actually haunted a family, blah blah blah, and then like it goes through the whole movie, and then there's just that one.
Yeah.
Like
Valak.
that
Picture.
one scene with the thimble. It's like, ooh, spooky thimble. Even the spooky thimble's getting in on it. It was kind of like that in the original.
Is there really a spooky thimble in The Conjuring?
No, I'm just using it as an example.
I would love it because you know there's got to be a spooky thimble, right?
Yeah, of course.
Somewhere,
Yeah.
someone has one, and imagine the process that it takes to narrow down what's fucking with your house, and eventually you get to the thimble, and you're like, I knew it the whole time. It was the thimble. You fucking thimble.
So that was kind of how they treated it in the original. In this one, it was literally like it was important to the character of Rachel.
Yeah.
And it was important to the relationship between Rachel and Lewis.
Right.
And they didn't like completely tell the story in one shot.
They did not shilly-shally.
They did shilly-shally. They held off giving the complete picture of the Zelda story until like in the
Midway.
like the latter half, I think.
Yeah.
Because the latter half is when it actually, well, maybe not the latter half. Yeah, about midway, she like reveals that she was responsible basically for Zelda dying.
Yeah, but it was an accident.
Got it.
Zelda dying was...
It was an accident.
It was an accident. It was an accident.
It was an accident.
Also, so the subplots in this movie were done much better than the original. And now I'm going to be talking about the Victor Pascal subplot was vastly different, as well. The Victor Pascal subplot was vastly different as well, in that there was much less of Victor, and this worked for me because, frankly, Victor was a distraction in the original, and he was always showing up all the time, and there was no real reason other than to be like, look, they can see a dead guy. He's they're maybe shining or something like that.
Yeah, I think he was more of just an exposition character, not necessarily like laying out everything, but just basically saying this important thing. Don't do this.
Yeah.
Don't go here. That's all I'm here for.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Pascal isn't super integral to the plot. I mean, I think when I wrote out the review for the original last week, I realized I got to the end of it and I didn't even mention Pascal.
Yeah.
Like, it's visually and as the movie, it's an important feature.
That's
but
what's important.
In terms of the plot, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's almost like they were like, well, we need more spooky imagery.
Yeah.
So let's put a dead guy with his head broken in, and he'll be a ghost. Ghosts are scary.
It's another like short story kind of thing inserted into the film or novel in Stephen King's case. I'm sure in the novel it's like makes more sense. In this one, he is much more dreamlike. It's never like feels like it's just a guy standing in front of him, surprising him at his bed, at the foot of his bed.
Right.
It's more of like Lewis is caught in a dream.
Let's check this thing out.
But then finds out maybe it's not a dream.
Yeah.
But like all the just weird dream logic, and Pascal is part of it. His voice usually, and some kind of smoky vision of his face.
There was less Victor, and it worked for me. So that was cool. One thing I noticed in this movie was a deer head mounted on Judd's wall in his house, and I couldn't help but think, man, it would suck to be dead so near the one place on Earth where you could be easily resurrected. Like that deer head is, I don't know, half a mile from the place where it could, be alive again. Mm-hmm. It's just sitting in Judd's house.
I wonder how long you have before the Micmac burial ground will stop working.
What do you mean?
Could he take that stuffed head and bury it in the Micmac burial ground, and the head would come back to life?
I'd like to think so.
Or if you just put some bones in there.
Well, actually, interestingly enough, this movie delves in. We are in the spoiler section, so it's all fair game. Well, okay, we'll get to this concept of how dead and long, how long do you have to be dead for the Micmac burial ground not to work anymore?
This is like a Gremlins rules discussion,
right?
Like obviously it doesn't make sense because it's fantasy,
purely theoretical.
But I mean, in the rules of the movie, you can bring back someone from the dead, but you can also still kill them,
right?
And so it doesn't really explain why, but stuff like strangling them or stabbing them in the heart or in the head, like that will kill them.
Yeah.
Kind of like a little more liberal version of zombie rules.
Yeah.
Like you can kill them like a normal person, but they're undead.
Yeah.
So then that calls into question, like, do they still have blood? Are they a functional? How does it work, David?
Well, we will arm our listeners with plenty of little tidbits and thoughts to have a discussion that will thoroughly anger their significant others or friends, and also so they can be the life of the party when talking about the Pet Sematary remake. Uh-huh. In this movie, Stephen King does get a little bit of a Maine nod because the cat was a Maine Coon. Ooh. Instead of one of those silvery blue kitties that they used for the first one.
The visuals with the resurrected cat are pretty great.
Yeah.
It's a pretty mangy looking cat.
Yeah, I did not want to touch that cat. It looks... cats can be gorgeous, like truly just beautiful, soft looking, so soft and silky, or they can really be like the grossest thing on earth next to a slug. Like, ew, I do not want to touch that thing.
Yeah, there's like, you can, like you said, they can be gorgeous, or they can, you look at them, you're like, that's
disease.
As dirty as a rat.
Oh, yeah.
That is basically a bigger rat.
A well-kept cat looks svelte. It's like, ooh, you look primo. And then,
in the original, like, he goes through the effort of bathing Church and getting them up to snuff because Ellie is like
a discerning child.
He stinks real bad.
Yeah.
We should give him a bath, and they do. And this one, I think they just like,
There
oh
is.
no, wait, Ellie does comb its hair.
Yeah,
but like is getting along the scabs and stuff in the hair. It's like
he's like, meow. Back kitty. Now, let's talk a little bit about Zelda's death in this Pet Sematary, which is truly upsetting and something that would haunt a kid forever. So Rachel has a flashback to remembering a night where she is required to take care of her sister alone yet again. Her parents were so fucking... Can we talk about how bad a shape like Zelda was? Like, she was not... Like, she just looked like she had caked on vomit and stuff. Like, and they were just like, don't touch her. Just throw some food, like a prison inmate. Just throw some food in her room and kind of let her like sweat it out.
Yeah, it was much more of like the family secret. No one knows that we have this other child, but we keep her in the dungeon or whatever.
Keep her locked up in the attic. Yeah. And Fancy.
Didn't want that on Mike.
That would have been juicy. So Rachel is, as a little child, is once again responsible for feeding her sister dinner, and she's alone in the house with her. Now, her sister lives upstairs, and she doesn't really like to go up there and see her because she's a terror to behold, and she hates her little sister. So she goes, okay, well, I guess I'll compromise and use the dumbwaiter that I've been explicitly told not to use. A dumbwaiter is a little elevator for food and laundry and whatnot. But this one is broken-ish. Sometimes it works and sometimes it don't. And this time, she puts the dinner in the dumbwaiter, pushes the button, starts going up, and it makes the breakdown sound like... And...
Then she hears
Zelda stir.
Stumble over to the dumbwaiter.
And then she kind of hears a little bit of a dumbwaiter opening, and then a couple seconds go by, and then boom, crash, boom, boom. And Zelda falls into, presumably falls into the dumbwaiter shaft. So after she falls in the shaft, there's it's basically, it sets up a jump scare. But that is how Zelda dies. And it's a shocking moment, and it's well executed, I thought. What did you think of the Zelda death in this remake?
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, it's appropriate. It's a woman all folded in half. That's been fit into an elevator shaft that's much too small for a normal sized person to fit in.
Yeah, it's much more disturbing. I can't remember how she died in the original. Like, what was there an action that happened, or did she just?
I don't think she died.
She did die because she was. I'm pretty sure. Like, part of the original was she was talking about how when she died, she was happy that Zelda had died because it was such a burden.
I honestly can't. I don't think they like flashbacked Zelda's death in the first.
That is one thing that's kind of missing from this remake. Is the feeling of spelling out of the fact that there's resentment about this person because they're waiting for her to die. And that kind of added a lot of color to the original, to where it touches on a lot more different angles with death. Mm-hmm. This remake was much more specific about, there's an afterlife, and you can bring people back from the dead, and there's problems with that.
Yeah.
And in the original, it's much more poetic in how it deals with different aspects of death and like the different feelings that you feel about death and the people that have died.
That's true. This movie is much more cut and dried, kind of not interested in exploring the theoreticals or the potential different angles of death.
Right.
Because it's a as complex thing as life, It's just something everybody has to come to terms to, but this movie is just more just black and white in terms of how it approaches death.
Yeah, I think the original takes a lot of different steps to where it leads you down the path to explore these different areas of dread and around death. And this one's more like fate based. You know where it's going. Like, it's very obvious that
for a number of different reasons, right? Yeah. Because the first one, you have the first one, so it's you kind of know,
right?
But that's a really good point, because the story of Pet Sematary is an exercise in dealing with death, right. So when you take out all those different angles and only consider the fate portion of it, it does become a little bit more black and white, a little more linear, and a little less interesting. So yeah. That's a good point. Judd in this movie has a much more interesting and compelling reason to bring Church back to life.
Yeah, the setup for that is a lot better.
Yes.
Than the original. Like, it feels like
in the original, it feels like Judd got drunk.
Right.
And decided, let's do this thing. Woo! Let's go get a kitty, bring her back to life.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. That's one of the reasons why the family was gone, is so that they could set up bringing Church back in the original.
Right.
Like, and I can't remember why they were gone and Lewis stayed back. But I do remember that when the family was gone, Church got hit by the car and Judd brought his attention to it.
No, because the family was there for. You're thinking of a later portion of the movie when Elle had died. Then the family left.
No, I'm talking about the original. Right now.
Oh, you're talking about the original.
Yeah, in the original,
that's right.
Lewis was alone when Church died.
Right,
and Judd brought his attention to it. And since they're away, and it was Lewis saying like, "How am I going to tell Ellie it's her favorite cat?"
Yeah,
Judd's like, "I got you, fam." And takes him to the burial ground and resurrects Church. And there's enough time for Church to reappear and Lewis to discover Church and like approach Judd and say, "What did we just do?" And Judd's like, "Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
it's back. And it was dead before. I don't know how it works.
But there it is.
But there it is. Now you don't have to explain death to your daughter."
Yeah, and in this one, the family is home.
Right.
The cat gets hit. Judd's like, "Hey, Lewis, come over here and check this out. I think your daughter's cat got hit." In the middle of them discussing the cat being dead, Ellie runs up and she's like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" And they're like, "Ooh." And
everything's good. Cats are all alive right now.
Yeah, no dead cats behind us. And Judd's like, she's like, it's like Halloween or a birthday party or something like that. And she's like, "I'm going to put a spell on you." And Judd's like, "You already have, sweetie." And it's sweet. And, and you can tell, Judd cares very much for this little girl. And he doesn't want her to feel the remorse of having to deal with the death of this cat.
Yeah. The relationship between Ellie and Judd is a lot better in this film.
Yeah.
And it sets up the reasoning for why Judd would want to help Lewis resurrect this cat.
And Judd, considerable effort is put into keeping Judd out of dealing with the death of the child, right?
Right.
Like he ends up, Lewis ends up drugging Judd to keep him from preventing him from bringing his dead child back to life.
Yeah.
There's some good comedic relief in this movie as they're hiking through the forest to bring Church back to life. It's dark and spooky, and then like a big jump scare happens, and Judd goes, "Oh, don't worry, it's just a loon," and it was fun and funny, and then they bring Church back to life after Lewis.
That's right.
After Lewis comes back from the graveyard. He doesn't know what's going to happen. He just knows he buried his daughter's cat in a faraway place. So he comes back and he tells his wife Rachel, he's like, "Oh man, the cat got hit by a car and I don't know what we're gonna do." But
they just decided to say that Church ran away.
Yeah, so they're like, "Okay, well, I guess we're gonna tell her that Church ran away." So they walk into her bedroom and in the morning, and they're like, "Sweetie, honey, I'm sorry to tell you that your cat ran away." And she's like, "What? No, he didn't. I saw him in the window last night." They're like, "Yeah, probably not, but real sorry about your cat running away." And then you hear this meow or something from the closet, and they open up the closet, and there's the fucked up Church who's been brought back from the dead. And the mom Rachel goes to Lewis, she goes, "Good thing you're not a fucking veterinarian." And that really, that brought the theater up quite a bit as well. So some good, light, much more levity in this movie than in the first.
Yeah.
And then there was a jump scare involving a medicine cabinet that was sufficiently awful and horrifying, where Rachel's feels that there's something going on in this house, something nearby, and she goes to open the medicine cabinet, and boom, there's Zelda all crumpled up as though she's in the dumbwaiter.
Yeah, flashback to that. I mean, this is one of the things that I can't say it bothered me about the movie, but it lessened it for me. I've already talked about it a little bit, but this movie feels really like a Conjuring movie. Like the the production design, everything is super dark, everything spooky. Like the house during the day
Bryce,
looks super spooky.
it's 2019. Everything feels like a Conjuring movie.
It just feels like
This is how we do it now.
like why would this young family live in a house with just terrible lighting that constantly feels like there's going to be a ghost lurking around the corner? It's like not a Victorian old mansion. It's like just some people's house. And so they do that so that they can set up these jump scares. And like I said, I don't blame them. It is effective. And as an audience, like, it's a lot scarier to not see stuff. But as like a storyteller, or thinking in the mind of a storyteller, I think it'd be more compelling for it to be just a regular house, like my house, you know?
You're not wrong, but I think it's just a sign of the times kind of thing, because in the late 80s, early 90s, the way a lot of movies were set up, think about Misery, think about Twin Peaks, think about Pet Sematary. These were all movies that had, decent lighting, and
Yeah.
there was not, it was...
And, or even Poltergeist. If you just look at Poltergeist, it looks very
light.
suburban.
Yeah.
And the stuff is just happening to a normal family in
The
a
Burbs.
normal house.
The Burbs is another great example of that.
Well, the Burbs even starts going into like the dark, like the Clumpets or whatever their names are.
60% of that movie is just outside in the sun. They're just baking on their roof, like, for part of it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's like, for me, when it comes to family-based horror, I like it to be
Light.
realer.
Light and airy.
I like it to remind me of my own white middle-class life.
Well, sorry we can't help you there, Bryce. This is Maine. Maybe it's just darker in Maine, although I doubt it. We live in Washington, and it's pretty dark here.
Yeah.
Not as dark as this movie. But yeah, that's legit, and I think it's just a sign of I think it's, it's
it's
the way movies have moved.
If you've got producers that are like, we're going to make a scary movie, all right, we know what works in scary movies, and they do that, which is they make it look like The Conjuring.
Yeah. Yeah, one big twist in this Pet Sematary is that Gage isn't the child that they lose. It's Ellie. I thought that this worked really well, given the friendship between Judd and Ellie, and it provided a super fresh take for the audience who patentedly expected Gage to die during that memorable scene. They set it up like Gage was going to die. He's out in the street, he's running around, but then the cat shows up in the middle of the street, and Ellie goes running over to him to say what's up, like, hey, kitty. And the semi sees Gage, swerves to avoid him. The trailer comes off and smashes Ellie right in her cute little face. Mm-hmm. And then she dies.
Yeah, and Keith goes into some pretty good detail, and he really predicted a lot of things really well. And
in his blog,
about the reasons for it, and then he talks about the director talking about why they made the choice to go with Ellie instead of Gage.
You knew. See, I didn't even read that portion of his blog where he apparently gave up that spoiler.
Right.
How did you know? How did he know?
It's pretty obvious in the trailer.
Oh. See, this is part of the advantage of, but it wasn't spoiled for me ahead of time, right?
The point was, like, there were storytelling reasons for choosing Ellie. Mainly how they were going to use Ellie in the movie, in this movie. They wouldn't have been able to do it in the same way with, like, a 2-year-old.
Right.
Mary Lambert, the director of the original, did a really, really great job of using that little boy.
Yeah.
And pulled off, like, some great disturbing stuff using that kid. But it was more of, like, highlighting, what have you done? This is not your son kind of thing. and it's he's a danger to you now. But with Ellie as the resurrected one, it's actually, she could be more of a threat, like a physical threat, because she's big enough to, not that you couldn't take her, but she could actually do some damage.
Yeah, but a 2-year-old you could just punt across the carpet and you'd be done.
Right. I mean, both, they do basically the same thing, but Ellie, didn't need to necessarily surprise the person outright and like sucker punch and do the equivalent of a sucker punch.
Yeah.
She could actually, run after them and stab them, kind of thing. And a little 2-year-old wouldn't do that. And that's what they're going after. They're going after kind of the slasher aspect with using undead child, and that wouldn't have worked out. It would have been seen as hokey or ridiculous with Gage. But you lose something by going with Ellie, because in the original, I mean, Gage is much more of just this adorable kid. They focus a little more on him, and he's just the embodiment of innocence. Like, he didn't do anything wrong. And you really see that the family they all loved Gage. And
the death really hurts.
The death
Gage.
really, really hurts with Gage, and
it hurts the audience.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it is painful, but it's nothing like losing a 2-year-old.
Right.
Which is, in a weird way, so tragic.
Right.
Like the ultimate tragedy.
Because it's still really painful to lose Ellie, because, you've gotten to know her personality. Yeah. Everyone of the characters has a relationship with her, and are affected by it.
It's less tragic to the audience, though.
But there's always this element of, like, she should have known better.
Right.
Like, she's like, 9 or 10. Like, you don't just run out into the street. Like, you are aware of your surroundings.
Let me see if I can kind of sum up what you're saying. Are you saying that this little 9-year-old girl who died in the street by a semi-truck hitting her deserved it?
I'm saying
that's what I'm hearing.
Yes, she should have known better. Oh, it's her
stupid
fault.
Bitch.
Yeah. I mean, see, that's the other element is, like, as a parent, there's a certain age range where the kids are literally trying to kill themselves,
right,
and it's your responsibility to stop them. And it is a great tragedy and a personal, like, it's your fault.
Yeah.
If they die, because they're always trying to, they're grabbing at knives and, jumping through windows,
running into the street,
like,
constantly.
But after, like,
just the stairs are terrifying.
Like at 8 or 9, they're not trying to actively kill themselves, because they also understand
pain,
what
consequences.
Yeah, they start developing fear around danger.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit lost there, but I understand why they did it, and frankly, like, it worked.
It worked well in a different way.
Yeah.
One thing that bothered me about this Lewis was that he was able to dig up his dead child, hike her out to an Indian burial ground in the middle of the night. After hiking her out there, he digs her a new grave, reburies her, and hikes home through the woods at night. Then he goes back to sleep. He goes back to sleep. How? I would be beside myself for days. I would never be able to go back to sleep if I had just done all those things that I just listed. It just seems unrealistic.
I don't know. I'd be tired. That's a lot of digging.
It's a lot of digging, a lot of hiking, a lot of carrying. I guess I
think on the hike, on the way back, you would have processed a lot of things.
I don't know, man.
Been like, I would have been able to sleep.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. And Ellie comes back to life, and Lewis decides to give her a bath because of how gross she is, having been buried twice. And as he's bathing her, the staples from her stint being prepped for burial the first time are present at the back of her head. Now, this is going back to your question that you asked about the deer of how long can something be dead before it can't be resurrected anymore? Uh-huh. To be buried, to be prepared for... to be put in the ground now in modern times, they suck everything out of you. brains, all your blood. They get you, and then they replace it with, depending on if it's an open casket or not, they replace it with, other stuff. But they definitely pull all your fluids out so that you can be preserved for burial.
They don't suck your brains out.
They don't?
No.
What were all the staples in the back of her head?
Well, she got hit by a fucking truck, so it's probably like a huge gash.
So they were mending the gash?
Yeah.
I
want to
took
bury her with a big flap of skin.
I took it to mean that her insides were gone.
I don't know. If you're a mortician and a listener, drop us a line on Twitter and tell us if you suck brains out.
Yeah.
I know that they pull out all the blood, or they pump in the embalming fluid to preserve, but I don't think they take out organs. It's like an ancient Egyptian thing.
Well, I mean, maybe she was a donor.
Yeah.
I mean, kid donors are that's high dollar stuff.
I don't think they do brain transplants.
No, maybe not brain transplants, but heart transplants for sure. Little kids need hearts.
Yeah.
And kidneys, all kinds of things. My point is, there could be all kinds of stuff missing from Ellie, and she's doing okay. Not okay, but she's alive.
Yeah.
So she appropriately she begins behaving erratically. She dances to the Nutcracker Suite and breaks things, and she's just real freaking out. She's freaking all out, and it's not cool, and it's appropriately disturbing and weird. I tell you what, man, it was weird to see Lithgow so old in this movie. Like, he went from middle-aged Lithgow to very old Lithgow. Last time I remember him was in Dexter, and that was over like 12 years ago.
Was it really that long ago?
Yeah, I think it was like 2007.
Oh, wow.
His season, anyway. And
he was great in that.
Yeah. But isn't it... I mean,
I think he could still look the way he looked in Dexter. It's like he's got a real scraggly beard in this one. So having a scraggly beard when you're old really adds on like a decade or two. It does.
But, I mean, remember Third Rock from the Sun?
I never watched it.
Wow. You never watched Third Rock?
No. I just looked at it and I was like, ugh.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. So many things that you watched I feel that way about, but not I didn't know it went both ways.
Are you saying that Quantum Leap isn't the pinnacle of television? Quantum Leap just celebrating its 30th anniversary. I read an article. I don't care what you say. Quantum Leap is great.
The one thing we can agree on, I think, is Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. One of the fake outs in this movie that I appreciated a lot was the heel, the Achilles heel, Achilles tendon cut fake out, where it was like,
look at this nice juicy Achilles tendon.
Look at that lift.
It's just like from the shot is from under the bed, looking at his heel, and you're like, uh-oh.
They're gonna cut him.
And then he just like boots the bed, and there's no one under it. And you're like, oh.
And then BAM! And then they get him in the heel. It was great.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah, that was really great.
I think the theater clapped. Like, or everyone went, ooh. That was fun. Dealing with a dead kid is essentially the equivalent of dealing with a live kid, is what I learned from watching this movie. Dead kids in this movie are the same as live children in real life.
Yeah, I guess that was another benefit of having Ellie be the dead one, because
she's a bitch.
There's really no difference between a 2-year-old, like, undead that's actively trying to kill people. It's like, yeah, I could still see a 2-year-old just doing that.
Yeah.
And still be completely innocent. They're like, hey, look, I learned that knives cut things. I'm going to cut you. Like, no, son. No, son. Cutting people's bad because that hurts them.
Put the knife down.
And there's like, no, but I want to kill people. No, son. That's bad.
Yeah.
And so when, like, I could do that with my live son, I wouldn't be surprised, just because they don't understand.
Yeah, they don't
understand anything. And so when there's an undead kid doing that, you're like, oh yeah, it must be just like taking care of a regular 2-year-old.
Yeah.
But with like a 10-year-old, it's, Oh.
Well,
Oh, it's a nice little girl turned into like a monster.
well, yeah, but I mean, it's not that different. She does, I mean, 10-year-old girl stabs her mom in the back 2 or 3 times. It's the same thing as real life, basically. As far as I can tell, that's about when that starts happening. Like, she likes dad, she hates mom. That's all cool. That's why I got 2 daughters, man. I'm just banking on the long term here.
Oh, man. God help you once they turn 13.
How am I going to deal with that?
I don't know. I always said, like, when my daughter turns 13, I'm going to just ship her out until she's like 25.
Ship her out to
Just like boarding school.
into,
To find a boarding school that will take them
Human-
from 13 to 25.
Oh, I was thinking
Or even better, like 35.
I was thinking like a human slave labor scenario, where it's like they can make you some money or something like that.
Yeah, but they're weak.
They are weak, but then they could become strong and be helpful at home for once.
Maybe I could have her dig for coal under our house.
There you go. Coal under your house.
But then I'd have to interact with her too. That's the thing.
This is how you dig for coal.
Like, I don't... That's what I don't want to deal with, is a 13-year-old girl that's like...
Daddy, is this coal?
That hates me and is like super passive-aggressive and creating drama in every interaction in my life.
And covered in soot with
and also
black lung.
actively trying to ruin her life.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to avoid that. And just, to be honest, Penny's 6 and it's already like, she's already a teenager.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's creepy.
Like, just eye rolling and...
Don't make that face at me. That kind of thing.
Yeah, the only thing is once she like discovers boys, it's just like, oh God, you don't understand.
I don't feel
They're
like
the enemy.
I don't feel like you have the appropriate amount of hatred in you to deal with male suitors.
Yeah.
Like, to be like, you just be like, oh damn it, and then kind of like, and then walk away.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, that's what I fear, is trying to teach my daughter how terrible men are.
I mean,
because we're pretty awful, especially in that age. Like,
yeah.
Can you remember how deplorable your mind was from like...
It's not a lot different now.
13 to 20.
It's not a lot different now, to be honest with you. And that's how, but I just have more reasoning and like restraint built in to keep that much more at bay. But so that, yes, I mean, absolutely. It's one of those things where it's like, girl, sweet, loving girl.
Yeah.
You got to understand that this is an animal compared to you.
Yeah.
This thing is an animal. And it's shocking to see the difference between little kids like my daughter's age. So little girls and little boys at 2.5, boys are almost not even there. They're almost still a 1-year-old that can walk. Uh-huh. And girls are like talking and sharing and looking at your face and considering how you're reacting. And a boy is just like, It's alarming how much faster girls mature than boys, and frankly, that goes on forever. Like, I'm just not on par with Carrie in terms of like
social situations. Yeah.
I still have to check with her if I look good at the start of the day. Is this appropriate? And she'll go, "What? No." I go, "Oh, okay. Try again." So,
we're at Shazam last night. Watched a movie, and we've just had these horror movie talk stickers made, and oh yeah, that's right. So I got another Pet Sematary poster. They like had the opening night posters, and I just swiped one, and the server at the theater was saying like, "Oh, Pet Sematary, I really want to see that." And then she went and got orders from the next people, and my wife was like, "You should give her one of the stickers." I was like, I don't know. She's like, "Just give it to me, I'll give it to her." So I give her a sticker, and Aaron's like, "Hey, you like horror movies? Listen to this podcast, blah blah blah."
How you like them apples?
I'm like, yeah,
grow some balls, dude. So,
and then she pointed out like the one difference is that she's a girl talking to a girl. Like, that is... I mean, imagine if you're like a 20-year-old and you see me and I'm like, you like murder?
That's a really good point. That's a really, really good point. Yeah, but you... no, that's a good point. So back to the spoilers for Pet Sematary. The end is a super twist. So Ellie kills her parents, takes them to the Pet Sematary, buries them, makes them come to life, and then Gage is the last one left. Poor little sweet, innocent 2-year-old kid. So it's the inverse ending of the first movie, kind of.
Yeah, both have a very dark ending.
Yeah.
Like, the original ends, and you realize, like, oh, Lewis hasn't learned anything.
Right.
Like, he's going to try to resurrect his wife, and his logic is like, well, I'm just going to do it right away, and then she'll come back the same. She won't be evil, right? And then it just ends with him walking towards the cemetery. But in this one, it's much more darker. It's like, nope, everyone comes back, and it's just the little innocent little boy.
This poor little thing that relies on people to keep it alive is now going to be killed and resurrected.
They do use that innocence in the ending. The innocence of Gage is like just underlined when the entire family of undead, parents and sister come to the car that he's locked in, and Lewis just goes boop boop, unlocks the car, and then it ends.
Yeah, so overall, I'd say watch this movie in theaters. It is a fun time. The audience was engaged the entire time. Actually, I was taking a look at our friends' Facebook, the Scariest Things podcast, and they posted a picture of them at the same screening as us, taking a picture of the back of your head.
Yeah,
and so
you sent that to me.
I thought that was funny. So they're gonna have a review on this as well. So you can, go ahead and check out their podcast, scariestthings.com. That's scariest with one T. So
yeah, Scariest Things, except it doesn't have two T's.
No two T's. Okay, so with that, let's get ready.
Don't shilly-shally, Lewis.
I'm trying not to. Let's get ready to play the Rotten Tomatoes game. Attack of the Rotten Tomatoes. So the Rotten Tomatoes game is a game where I pit two movies against each other, and Bryce has to determine which one has the higher score on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's the Tatometer score, not the audience score. Today's matching pairings are going to be the originals versus the remakes. So, without further ado, I'm trying not to shilly-shally. The first matchup is A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984 versus Nightmare on Elm Street, 2010.
I'm going to say the original has the higher score.
See, so you'd think that because the original was good and the second one, the remake, was very bad. By the way, we do have a blog on this that Keith wrote, the original versus the remake, and he tears into the remake. So you are right. The French. The original got a 94%, and the remake got a 15%. So a little bit of a discrepancy there.
Nice.
The second set is The Fog from 2005. That's the remake versus The Fog from 1980, the original.
I always get this mixed up with The Mist. I can't remember which one's The Fog and which one's The Mist.
Yeah, that's tough. You really got to know these things.
Which one ends with the guy killing his family?
Yeah, I believe that's The Fog.
So you don't know which one's The Fog either?
No, I do. I do want to cast some shade on this because I feel like if I let on too much between The Fog and The Mist, you're going to... You have to use the things God gave you. I can't give you too much.
I'm going to say the remake is higher scored.
Ooh, I'm very sorry, Bryce. This is actually a very large discrepancy.
Oh, no.
Much like the first. The Fog remake got a 4%.
Oof.
Hell to the no.
Hell to the no. That's what every critic said when they saw the Fog remake.
That's what I'm going to play when I get it wrong.
Okay.
And then moi the French when I get it right.
The original got a 75%, so
Wow.
pretty decent. So the next pairing is The Crazies. I believe that's George A. Romero. And I think he had an executive producer credit on the remake. So you got 1973 versus 2010. 2010, popular year for remakes.
The Crazies.
Let's walk us through the thought process.
I mean, I got to think that there has to be a remake that's higher scored than the original. And it feels like an 80s George Romero,
70s.
70s George Romero would not be highly rated. So I'm going to say the remake.
You are correct.
The French.
Yeah, the 2010 Crazies is actually pretty good. That being said, the original is not bad either. They're both decent movies, and you should give them a chance if you can. Yeah, 1973 Crazies got 64%, whereas the 2010 got a 71%. So next we have The Hills Have Eyes, the original from 1977, and the remake from 2006.
I'm going to say the original.
Why would you say that?
I haven't seen either one. I do remember that the remake was... Of course, I was talking to a coworker that's more towards the middle-aged woman category, so she didn't.
No, I think she's accurate.
Taste.
I think
Said
she's
that
accurate.
it's like
here.
super gory and like exploitative.
It's
like torture porn.
Yeah, it's
level.
torture porn level.
I don't think critics like torture porn,
They don't seem to,
even when it's good.
even when it's good. And give us an example of good torture porn.
I think Hostel was great,
Yeah, you do like that. I won't watch it.
and I like go if you haven't read it, go read Ebert's review of The Human Centipede. It is glorious.
Why?
Because he doesn't give it a score. He doesn't give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down or anything. He just says, I give...
May God have mercy on your soul.
I'm not... He says, I'm not giving The Human Centipede a star rating because it exists in a universe with no stars.
He recognizes that it's not of this world.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the correct rating for The Human Centipede.
So, I'm sorry, did you say the original on this one?
Yes, the original.
And you are going to be correct.
The French.
The original from 1977 got a 67%, and the remake got a 51%. And I've been told, I didn't watch it because I heard, yeah, it's pretty brutal, the remake. So the final, I can't recall. I think you've got 2 points. I think you've got two, maybe
so
3.
What ones did we do? I missed the fog.
You missed the fog.
So I got the first one. Just where the movies are. Nightmare on Elm Street I got. Missed the fog.
Crazies.
Crazies.
And Hills Have Eyes. I think you have 3 points
I have 3 points now, yeah.
Okay,
so I won the game.
So the final, the final pairing is going to be Halloween 1978 versus Halloween 2018. There's been a couple remakes of Halloween, but we're choosing obviously the best one.
Yeah.
This is actually
a hard
hard.
one. Yeah, this is
actually
a hard one because both are very good. Halloween, the 1978 one, is it 78 or 79?
78.
78 was so influential, and you got to take into account that It's a classic movie, so
It's been reviewed and re-reviewed.
yeah, even modern sites are going to be reviewing it over and over again.
Schlubs like us.
Because it's got a huge series of movies, so people, of course, are going to review the first one favorably. I am going to say the remake.
You are wrong. Halloween 1978 got a 95%, whereas the remake now is sitting at 79. It really took a nosedive over the last couple months.
I would have swapped that.
And rightfully so, I say. The remake, it's not even really a remake. It's a response. It's like number 2 to the first one.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I guess it's what you would call a soft reboot.
Soft.
But it's literally a sequel, though.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like ignoring the second movie and building from there. Like, this is what happened after the first, but for real this time.
No, I thought it was after the second.
No, I don't think
it went 1, 2, and then
maybe
the remake.
I don't know. I just host a horror movie podcast.
Okay.
Why would I know this shit?
You might be right.
Anyway, so that's the end of the show. Thank you very much for listening. Remember to subscribe to our podcast and share it with a friend and give it a review and like us on Facebook and hit us up on Twitter and do all that fun stuff. If you want to support the show and get great horror movies and shows streaming, check out Shudder and use HMT at checkout. That's code HMT at checkout to get 30-day free trial instead of the normal stupid 7-day free trial. That dumb old 7-day. We got 30. Sup?
Yeah.
Don't shilly-shally.
About Shudder.
Yeah, don't do that. Anyway, also, if you want to support the podcast, click through our Amazon Associates link at the top of our page, and you will give us a couple cents here and there. Special thanks to everybody who's been producing tremendous traffic on our website. We love everyone who comes and stays, and if you leave right away, we hate you. And so make sure to have a great week, and we love you.
I love you too. So goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.